The following program is brought to you in part by Logisticare, the nation's leading provider of specialized transportation network management to state and local government clients. By Maine's credit unions, now is the time for a credit union. There is one for you. And by MacPage, developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference.
Josh, you know, I mean, we started legislative races. This is our can of worms here. I mean, we love House and Senate races, but the question is, does anybody else care?
That's right. We know how much time it takes. We know how important it was for
Yeah.
us and for Speaker Eves and Leader Fredette. But it really is neighbor versus neighbor race, and we always like to joke that we're all political experts before the election, and the population of experts gets cut in half the Wednesday after the election. Yeah,
no, that's absolutely true. And I mean, it is an interesting cycle. As much as, you know, the public might see a few flyers come in their mailbox from a House or Senate candidate, you know, the battle, who controls the House and who controls the Senate, whether it's the Democrats or Republicans, it does matter. It matters for whether, you know, LePage or Michoud was governor, where the party's control goes. It does matter to Maine people.
I think it's so important. I mean, the agenda is dictated by the majority party, and the ability to govern really comes through being able to have a governing majority.
And Governor LePage has seen what it's like working with his own party as well as having a different party where it's been obviously a very different dynamic. So
you know, certainly he wants to, you know, start a second term the way he started with Republican majorities.
Well, we'll see what happens. Welcome to the main event. My name is Hannah Pingree, and I'm here with my guest co-host while Roger Katz is gone, Josh Tardy. And we have a great show coming up. We've got the Speaker of the House as well as the Republican leader, and we're going to talk about the battle for the State House. So with that, we will be right back.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
Tell me what can I do today? Hey, let me get that for you. Everybody needs a helping out. If that ain't what it's all about, tell me what.
Thank you, young man.
What can I
No problem.
What can I do today?
Courtesy. Pass it on.
I got it.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
The trend is clear. More Maine people are joining credit unions. The reasons are clear. Credit unions offer something different from banks: true financial value, loan rates that are usually lower, products and services with low fees or none at all. That's because credit unions are owned by their members, people just like you, who create a community that welcomes you wherever you are in life. Discover why a credit union is your best financial choice. Now is the time.
Welcome back. Josh and I have a great panel today. We've got the leaders of the House campaigns. We're going to talk about House and Senate races. First guest is Speaker of the House, Mark Eves. Welcome.
Great. It's great to be with you guys.
I'd also like to welcome my state representative, Representative Ken Fredette of Newport, who's the House Republican leader. Let me just start by saying I know you guys put a lot of time in on the campaign trail helping other candidates. How do you feel about your team's chances with the election coming up, Mr. Speaker?
So we feel really great. We feel like the momentum is definitely at our backs, and we're in a really great position. We started really well with the number of members that are returning that decided to do this again, which is a great sign. And the quality of candidates that we were able to recruit is really remarkable. We've got small business owners, teachers, farmers, doctors, nurses. I mean, people that really care about their communities, care about their states, and for that reason, I think we're in a very good position to keep the House this November.
Mr. Leader.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I think certainly the national mood is certainly, I think, against the Democrats. Nationally, they're talking about the U.S. Senate picking up 7 U.S. Senate seats. I think that's something that helps us. I think the poll recently released by the Portland Press-Herald on the 2nd Congressional District race really shows where I think independents and Republicans are in this race. We have top shelf candidates, and you know, I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen on Election Day, and that's why we have elections.
So, question for both of you. Just step back a little bit. We'll talk about House and Senate races, some specifics today, but just give the viewer a sense of what is a candidate running for the legislature out there doing right now. What does their campaign consist of? Are they raising millions of dollars? You know, they have a huge campaign team, or is it something very different? Well, maybe start with you, Ken.
Well, I think it's significantly changed over the last 10 or 15 years. The clean election law has had some issues with it constitutionally. That's changed the dynamics out there. But there's the basics that you'll always do in terms of marching in the parade. You're going to do some mailings and you're going to knock on doors. That's sort of the bread and butter. But I think at the end of the day, what really plays so much in these House races is what goes on at the parties and the PACs. There's independent expenditures on these races, and I think that has a huge influence in terms of what happens on Election Day.
And I have a little bit of different take on that. I really think, I mean, House elections are won and lost on the number of doors you knock on, how you connect with people in your community. So our candidates are doing just that. They're knocking on an incredible amount of doors, connecting with their neighbors, hearing about the issues that they want that individual to go to Augusta to represent them. So obviously jobs and the economy and bipartisanship. People want us to work together to move this state forward, and our candidates are hearing that and reporting back and feeling good about the position we're in.
You two are both your leaders of your respective political action committees, and we hear a lot about the place for negative politics in Maine politics. Is there a place for it, and do you expect that your political action committees will be engaging in the so-called issue advocacy or negative politics?
I haven't seen really any at this point in time. I think, quite frankly, the House races, I think if you actually even look at the independent expenditures, both by the parties, by and large have been support pieces, and I think that will continue. Certainly, it's, I think, reasonable to talk about issues and how people voted, but I don't think you're going to see much negativism in this particular cycle. Yeah,
I think people don't like the attack ads, and the more that we can talk about the positive strengths of our candidates, the better off we will be. So, you know, we've got quick 4 weeks to get to the finish line. So hopefully, people will do their homework, get to know who their candidates are in their districts, and make an informed decision.
So let's talk a little bit about how other stuff does trickle down.
Yeah.
I mean, for the Republicans, you've got the governor's race, and positives and negatives around that, and for the Democrats, you've got the president, and so I mean, there's all kinds of things out there. Do those things impact House and Senate races, from what you can tell and from what your candidates are hearing at the doors?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I think really what the influence is upon two significant things. One is how energized are your party voters to get out and vote, and I think it certainly impacts the independent voters. You know, are they going to lean Republican or are they going to lean independent? I think at the end of the day, most everybody acknowledges it's the independent voters that decides the winners, whether it's in a House race or all the way up into the U.S. Senate race. It's about those independent voters, and so I think that's the key, quite frankly.
Yeah, but I think the national mood obviously has an impact, down ticket. I mean, it's unavoidable. It happens every cycle, and we go through these ups and downs. I think the election year this year is a bit different with Congressman Michoud on the ticket. Ken talked about kind of rallying the base and making sure that they're there to get out. We're certainly there. People have rallied around Mike Michoud as our next governor, so we feel good about that. Turnout is always down on a non-presidential year, so we're a little bit, you know, keeping our eye on that. But overall, I think the enthusiasm's there in a much bigger way than it was in 2010. The organization is there. The ground game is there. People are going to get out and vote.
As your team of candidates hit the doors, what are the issues that they're hearing?
Well, I think it's really basic. I mean, you know, we're really going back to 2008 when the economy crashed. People are still concerned about jobs in the economy. Quite frankly, they're concerned about welfare. Welfare reform is a significant issue. And they do want to see, you know, real stuff get done at the state level. I think for example, the omnibus energy bill that we did last session with myself and Senator Cleveland and Representative Hobbins in a bipartisan fashion was an example of, I think, what we can do when we work together. And I think that we need to look at big things to do in Maine together because it's a tough you know, not only an economy here in Maine, but a regional economy, a national economy, and an international economy.
So I'd agree with Leader Fredette on those issues. I mean, our candidates are hearing about jobs and economy, wanting to make sure that we're creating economic opportunity for everybody. Another issue that's come up that I'm really excited about, that people are hearing a lot about at the doors, and we're going to have a big effort come January after the election, is making sure that our seniors can age in their homes, live independently, age with dignity, and be connected to the communities that they raise their kids in. So we have heard incredible feedback around that. I do hope that this is one of those big issues we can work on together. Very committed to having a bipartisan coalition to put forward some of the proposals that we've rolled out with the affordable senior housing bond, property tax relief for seniors, and making sure that we have a direct care workforce that we can support, that take care of our seniors and make sure that they can stay connected in their communities and have a secure retirement.
But let's be very clear, though, going into this next January, the budget is going to be a very significant issue. The temporary tax, the 5.5%, a half a penny increase on the tax issue is going to be going away. That's about an $80 million hit, another $30 million on lodging and meals. And so this budget coming up is going to be a real challenge for whoever's governor.
Josh, look at these two. They don't even want to talk about the elections. They're already talking about how they're going to work together and the issues they're going to face, which is actually really promising, because it's not about the elections. It's about how you win and then what happens afterwards, which is really governing. So, but when we come right back, we're going to bring them back into the election battleground, talk about a few specific House and Senate races. And so thank you both for being here. We'll be right back.
Now is the time. If you're ready for a home loan or a home repair, if you want to get behind the wheel of a new vehicle, make it happen with a visit to your local Maine credit union. For low loan rates, great terms, and decisions made locally. Everything feels right about a credit union, starting with people who are always willing to work with you. If you want a better way to borrow, join a Maine credit union, your best financial choice. Now is the time.
Well, you're wrong.
I'm wrong. You're the one who misrepresented the facts.
I misrepresent the facts? Are you kidding? Your proposal is ridiculous.
You have no right to call anyone.
You are the worst example of politics.
I stand for something.
Flip-flop.
I stand for something.
Flip-flopper, flip-flopper.
Your proposal is ludicrous.
My proposal will go exactly the way I say it will.
My dead body.
I think somebody needs a timeout.
That's the power of one.
I motion that I be issued the timeout, and...
Wow, me too.
Yeah, for sure, you should get a timeout.
I apologize.
And I motion that I start showing more respect.
Civility. Pass it on.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
I'd like to welcome everybody back, and with our guests, Representative Ken Fredette and Speaker Mark Eves. Why don't we talk about some battleground House races? What's out there that's interesting?
Well, I think certainly the race which I think garnered a lot of attention last cycle was the Presque Isle seat, where Democrats, quite frankly, spent $75,000 to unseat Representative Ouellette. We have a candidate up there this time who is a retired school teacher, Larry Fox. I think he was a principal, in fact. Just a terrific guy, well known in the community. He's been working hard, knocking on doors. Depending upon what happens in outside spending in that particular race, I think he's a great candidate, and I think he's a favorite to win in that particular race. And then if you go down into the Pittsfield seat where we have Scott Storm, who's a retired 20-year Navy guy, running against Stanley Short. I think that's another interesting race. Stanley won by, I think, less than 50 votes the last time around, and so we're seeing some activity in that race. And so I think those will be two bellwether races for us to look at.
And we're looking, I mean, Bangor's been interesting in the last couple cycles because it's gone back and forth. So there's 3 seats in Bangor right now that could potentially, people are watching, I think, to see how this election cycle plays out. I think we've got great representation there, and the 3 Democrats that are in those seats, they're working really hard. But I think Bangor is always interesting to watch, whether it's the House races or the Senate races. It's kind of become this bellwether for the state.
And not to put you both on the spot, you're both House guys, but how do you see the Senate races playing out? We just did a show where some political types said the Senate is really the battleground, and there's a lot going on there, and that could go either way. I mean, from where you sit as sort of political junkies like us, where do you see the Senate going? Maybe start with you, Mark.
So my vantage point, I think the Senate will stay Democrat. I think that there are a number of races that are going to be very interesting to watch, whether that's down in Scarborough with Boyle and Volk, or in Bangor with Gratwick and Weston. Those are going to be tight races, and Representative Fredette mentioned, races being won by 50 votes. I mean, that happens quite frequently. So I think just like in the House and the Senate, Democrats are poised to keep majorities, and I think that the wind certainly is at our back. The Senate's different, smaller numbers, only 35, not 151. So, potential for more movement there. But I think at the end of the day, when all the votes are counted November 4th, Democrats will be in control of both the House and the Senate.
Ken, do you agree?
Well, I will tell you one thing. It would be nice to only worry about 7 or 8 races instead of 50 or 60 races. Yeah. And so I think that's what both sides are doing right now. They're looking at 7 or 8 races, lining up in terms of whether or not they're incumbents or non-incumbents, what the dynamics are. We have a great candidate down, for example, I think it's in the Lewiston area, where we have a strong female candidate in Gagne. She's a great candidate, and we're going to be watching that race very closely. And I think, again, just your incumbents, you need to protect your incumbents. Obviously, I think Langley will be someone that we need to protect, and I think he'll do fine at the end of the day down there. And so I think most people that you talk to that know the game say that the Senate is in play. I don't think anybody's betting a vacation on either way it's going to go. Yeah.
Let's talk about outside spending as it relates to this neighbor versus neighbor community race in a state legislative race. Do you expect that we'll see this influx of out-of-state money trying to influence this election cycle?
I mean, if the pass is any indication of what's going to happen this time, we probably will anticipate outside money coming in. Again, at the House level, I really believe that the way those elections are won is by connecting with your community door to door. So whether it comes or not, I feel confident that we're positioned in a way that we're going to be able to keep the majority. But I would not fall out of the seat if we had that outside money coming in.
Yeah, well, I think that, quite frankly, I think you have to look to your candidates to do the work on the ground. I mean, whether there's outside money or not, you can't control that as a leader. And so what you do is you tell your candidates, get out, knock on the doors, spend what money you have wisely. The leadership PACs will try to spend money wisely, and you have to let the cards fall where they may, because you don't have control over that, quite frankly.
So take a step in a different direction. Talk to us about, I mean, you have a lot of people. Each of you have over 100 candidates in your party, 150 candidates running for the Maine House, and you have a lot of characters out there. So maybe start with Mark. Give us a couple examples of people you have running who are just unique people. They all have other jobs typically, or they're retired from an interesting profession. So talk to us about a couple people you think are interesting.
Well, I think that's every individual in the Maine State Legislature, really. Because it is a part-time legislature and people typically do have other jobs. But one candidate that comes to mind, Callie Pecunis in Bethel, traditionally has been held by Republican in that seat. She is she's a realtor for Sunday River, young mom, and just really an outstanding candidate that is connected very well in her community. So really excited about Callie. I think she has a lot of potential, a lot to bring to the State House and for her community.
Great. Ken?
I think it's quite interesting that we have, for example, Norm Higgins up in Dover-Foxcroft. Norm is a Republican working hard, was a trustee on the Foxcroft Academy, had been involved, I think, in the consolidation issues of schools back under Angus King, and in a very red county, it was endorsed by the MEA.
Wow.
You know, you've both talked about, you talked about the national trend and the wind being behind Republicans' back. The Speaker says he likes the way the wind's positioning Democrats. How are we going to reconcile these contrasting weather reports anyways?
On Election Day, I mean, like Representative Fredette said, That's why we have elections, to see what the results are, and you know, we have to wait till then. But I think that in any other year where we didn't have such an energizing gubernatorial candidate on the ballot, I would be nervous, much more so than I am currently. But I really feel like the base is there, people engaged, and talking about the independent voters. I mean, people over the last 4 years have watched this governor, and I think the verdict is, and we'll find out, but I do think the verdict is that the economy is not where it's supposed to be. We're in the back of the pack nationally, and people are looking for a new vision and new leadership at that level.
I think it's actually quite interesting, because if you really look at the races up and down the ballot, you know, Susan Collins is roughly at 70%. Recent Portland Press Herald poll has Poliquin up 10 points. You have the governor's race split at 50-50. I think a lot of these races are going to come down to close races, but at the end of the day, I think the lean is going to go towards the Republicans.
Well, one thing's for sure, Election Day, we're all going to be watching. We're going to be interested. You have to count the ballots. These things aren't predetermined. And I also know, both Hannah and I know how much that you two put into it and the work you put all across the state, and we know that that's public service inherently.
We wish you both a vacation in mid-November, because you're going to need it. So thank you. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Guys. Yeah.
We will be right back.
Now is the time. If you're ready for a home loan or a home repair, if you want to get behind the wheel of a new vehicle, make it happen with a visit to your local Maine credit union. For low loan rates, great terms, and decisions made locally. Everything feels right about a credit union, starting with people who are always willing to work with you. If you want a better way to borrow, join a Maine credit union, your best financial choice. Now is the time.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
What happened to your passing? You gotta support the puck. Do I have to tell you this? And we're getting killed on the board. Hello. This is your territory, Grimson. Do your job.
Grimson.
Hello? Oh, hi, honey. What? Al? All right. The itsy bitsy spider climbed up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider climbed up the spout again.
I love you, Daddy.
I love you too, sweetheart.
Hey, it's my girl.
You know, my daughter.
Love. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Welcome back, Josh. It was a great conversation. Obviously, these two, Speaker of the House and Leader Fredette, they both are great guys, very invested. It's actually good to see that they actually get along with each other. They had different predictions of what might happen in the elections, but what do you think?
Isn't that really the unwritten story? Is that the legislators from both sides of the aisle get along pretty well. We have this thing called elections. I mean, we tried to get along. Sometimes, I had to have supervision, but you were always good to me. We appreciate that. But no, I think both Leader Fredette and Speaker Eves, I think they're both confident. And as they said, you got to have the election day. You have to count the ballots. And so we'll see. And
there are a lot of competitive races out there. I mean, there are 151 seats for the House, only 35 for the Senate. I think, I think as they both said, the Senate really is a battleground in terms of what will happen. But you never know. There are so many people out there running. Some of them you're paying attention to when you're the leader or working on campaigns. But really anything can happen in these
And
elections.
I think they both agreed. It comes right down to how's that candidate knocking on the doors, how's that candidate relating to the people in his or her district, and it really is a neighbor versus neighbor race.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about the legislative races.
Yeah. You miss it?
I certainly missed it. I thought it was a great job. I'm glad to be out.
Yeah, it's hard. I do miss it sometimes listening to these guys, but you know, there are other days I'm glad I'm not out there knocking on doors.
And it's nice to hear from people that have opinions. And there's another person out there that always wants to share his opinion. Let's hear from our good friend Gary Crocker.
Now this is going to be wicked exciting. I know when I was just a young fella, me and my grandfather never missed a wrestling match. No siree, Bob. I know all the famous wrestlers. They'd all be there showing off their stuff. The evil ones, like Killer Kowalski, would jump into the ring with mayhem on their minds. They'd shake their fists at the crowd and yell back at the fans, trying to scare everybody. Then the good guy would jump into the ring to wild applause and adulation from his adoring fans. I remember Chief J. Strongbow was one of the heroes. You could always count on him to set things straight and deal with the menace in the far corner of the squared circle. And before the wrestling began, they'd yell at each other. Believe it or not, they might even say things about their opponent that weren't true. Then a third fella in a nice white shirt and tidy black pants would enter the ring and invite both wrestlers to the center of the ring so he could explain the rules. Like no hit below the belt, no eye gouging, and no biting. He then asked both fighters to shake hands and come out fighting at the sound of the bell. Promoters would come up with titles like the Fight of the Century or Grudge Match for the Ages to generate interest and get the audience all fired up about the big event. More recent ads have included reference to steel cage matches, and today they have ultimate fighting where feet, fists, and even the occasional headbutt are allowed and sometimes even encouraged and condoned by the officials seated at ringside. You have to pay extra money on pay-per-view TV if you want to see someone take a real beating. So when I heard about the battle for the Blaine House, I turned to Mother and I said, put the kids to bed early, pop some extra corn, cool down some moxie, and bake some whoopie pies. This one's going to be a real corker, and I don't want to miss a minute of it. Why, I'll bet Grandpa's tuning up his old Philco TV and his celestial perch to see who's going to wrestle his way to victory in the ultimate main event, the battle for the Blaine House. Get your tickets early and pay attention. This one's going to be a doozy. And me and Mother, we don't want to miss one round in this ultimate grudge match. Mother, the Moxie's on ice, eh?
Well, there we have it from Gary. Luckily, Josh and I didn't do any heavy wrestling here in the arena, and neither did our two guests today. But you know, leave it to Gary. He always has a good story to tell about elections.
Well, you're right. We never got into fisticuffs, but you know, as Gary said, it can be the main event, and there's nobody that wants to shed light onto the true fisticuffs of Maine politics like Gary Crocker.
That's so true. Well, I just want to wrap things up today by thanking my good friend Josh Hardy for being here. He filled in for the last 2 months while Roger Cates was out campaigning, and I really, it's been a pleasure to see you again, and I know that we'll get you back on the show, so thank you.
Well, Hannah, thanks for having me. It's great to work with you again.
Great, thank you. Well, we will be back, and the next time we're back, it will be post-election. We'll have a lot to talk about, so thank you again for joining us.
This program has been brought to you by Logisticare, the nation's leading provider of specialized transportation network management to state and local government clients. By Maine's credit unions, now is the time for a credit union. There is one for you. And by MacPage, developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference.